So I just finished doing a Second in Command podcast interview with Cindy Perks, who is the COO for a company called Global Mentoring Solutions. And they have mentors, basically frontline technology, tier 1, 2, and 3 technology support all over the United States and Canada. They have been fully remote as a company since 2007, which is pretty cool. They've been running a tech support company with as many employees as they have for some big firms globally. And I asked her just about leading teams and any of the lessons that companies can now learn now that we're going remote. She said, well, the big one is that you need to use your ears very differently now that companies are remote. And she said what they learned and have learned over the last 13 years of being a fully remote company is you don't get the benefit of overhearing what's happening around you. So I've always been a big proponent of getting out of the office and going and sitting out on the floor with the rest of your employees. Like, get rid of the private offices, go sit out with your team, because then they can hear you and you can hear them. But over video and over Zoom, and now that everybody's remote, you don't overhear any of that. So her advice and experience over the last 13 years was you really need to use your ears in a very different way. So what they do is they actually will go and sit in on meetings. They'll sit in on Teams meetings often and always, where they'll just sit there doing their work. They might have video on or off, but they'll sit in the background listening to what's happening with the employees and listening to what's happening to the discussion. But they have to go on, they've been using Zoom since its inception, but they have to actually proactively go into those meetings to listen to what's happening with your team. Really interesting, because if you're in an actual physical environment, you can always hear what's happening with your employees around you. So I thought that was really interesting advice. When we built 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we had our PR team sitting very close to Brian and I. Brian was the CEO and I was COO. Our PR team sat right near us so that they could always overhear us and we could overhear them, because they were always pitching our story and we were able to tweak it, because we heard stuff happening. But when you're remote, you don't hear that. What about your sales team and how are they selling to customers? Are you listening in? So do you get can you listen in on sales calls? Can you get patched in on a Zoom call, or can you get them recorded using Otter and listen to what they're saying? Big opportunities for leaders to use your ears differently and to proactively using your ears right now. So huge tip. Her episode, Cindy Perks, the COO for Global Mentoring Solutions, will be live in around a month or 6 weeks time. But there's also some other great episodes on the Second in Command podcast you should listen to as well. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. That was super insightful for me that I hadn't thought about yet.